Okay, so I just want to start read a little thing, and then I want to base my whole speech on that. And just to let you know, the only prop that I've got here is an orange. Most people who do speeches come with their projectors and their laptops and all that. I don't have any of that because I've just read a book called The Naked Presenter. And in Japan, how they teach people to present. And it's true. They make them do speeches naked. And I thought, well, I couldn't do that, but I would have nobody standing here. So I thought I'd be dressed like this. Okay. You must listen to this because everything that I'm saying is about this. And also to let you know that I'm getting the speech, Peter's very kindly recording it so that I will upload it and I will also put it on CD because there's a lot of things, because I sometimes ambush you with a lot of information. People who know me all at once, and I'll throw everything at you. So you can go home and you can work through it, because you may not get everything today, okay? But this is it. Knowing what is essential to you allows you to meet the chaos of life with a clear mind and an open heart. Being clear about who you are as you respond to life's challenges is the only strategy that leads you to a sustainable sense of well-being. Being grounded in your authentic self, your essence supports you in making choices and decisions. It helps you endure anxiety and stress and enables you to bear disappointments and difficulties with equanimity. Equanimity is actually calmness, peacefulness, okay? And what I want you to know is that this is my prop, and I want you to explain, because I think a lot of people here don't know who they really are, and they identify with some part in themselves which isn't really who they are. Okay, so if you can imagine an orange, okay, just pretend that you're this orange today, okay? All right, so what happens is that there's a whole lot of different parts that make up your life, and there's an essence about who you are that we've lost sight of, and when you know who that essence and who you are, you will find life so much more easier. But what happens is that if you look at an orange, it has different segments, and some people will identify, and I'm going to tell you who you're not. You're not your status. You're not a single girl, a divorced man, a divorced 5 times woman, whatever. You're not that. You're not somebody who's been diagnosed by a psychologist as borderline, bipolar, depressed. You're not that. You're not your role. You're not, I'm a mother, I'm a father. That is not who you are. You're not as somebody who is failed in life. You're not a failure because you haven't achieved this. You're not your ego. And that your ego is, in fact, your ego is something that you do need, because just for instance, to do this speech, you have to have quite a big ego in a way, because you've got to say, actually, I can do this. And also you've got to have small ego to humble yourself, that you want to teach people that. So, but you're not your ego. You're not your profession. You're not, if you're a plumber or a medic or a housewife, you're not that. What you really are is something that matters deeply to you. And I'm not going to ask anybody what actually matters deeply to you, because I know when I've done courses and people have asked me questions, I go into freeze mode and I'm scared to say the right thing. So what I'm going to tell you is that if you operate your whole life, every single thing, every decision you make, everything that you do in life, and you respond from something that really matters to you. And I'm talking about myself, and I speak to and see so many people that come through my door. And I'm very privileged to be able to learn from so many people that the one thing that sustains you for the rest of your life and for your whole life is just to be kind. It's the most simple thing. But if you base every single thing you do, every decision you make, who you are, who you identify yourself with, all your emotions from a place that you are a loving, kind person, because that is the only thing that doesn't change. Your job can change. Your status can change. You can become depressed one day you're sad, one day you're happy, one day you go into a relationship and you with somebody and you think, oh, my life, if I lose this person, never going to be the same again. Or you lose a father or someone, you think, oh my word, I don't even know how I'm going to function the next day. You do, because if you're operating from a place where you just know that life, the only thing that doesn't change is kindness. And I was very privileged in my life that, and I suppose also as a mother, I've probably been blessed in the fact that I've made a huge amount of mistakes. So I haven't really been able to say to my children, well, when you get married, you must do this for the rest of your life or whatever. I've failed in many areas of my life. But the one thing that I taught my children was to be kind. And there's 3 things. I said, be kind, be kind, be kind. And it has sustained them. And I've seen it in their life that when they've based their whole life on kindness. And I was very privileged to grow up in a family where I never saw alcohol, I never saw anger, I never saw evil. I grew up in an environment where everything was literally perfect with my lovely mum and dad and all my siblings. And so what happens when I got into the real world, I actually had very, very few coping skills. I really did, because I just thought everybody that I meet is good. Every man I meet is wonderful. There's no such thing as porn. There's no such thing as drinking. Everybody's kind. I can trust everybody. And I woke up to the real world and I didn't know what had hit me, because I made some very poor choices. So what I did, at the age of 26, I started to read, and I think I've read my way through life. Every problem that I've had, some people go off to the pub or they go to fortune teller or wherever you want to go to. I've gone into a book. So I've actually become a bit of a social misfit, and that's thanks to my mother too, because that's all that I've known. That's how I've coped through life. I've read my way through life. And so I've learned a lot, and I've actually been fortunate enough to try and put it all into practice. And what I've realized in life, that we respond to emotions in 2 ways. We respond either in an anxious way or we respond in an avoidant way. And when you respond in an avoidant way, when you get painful feelings in your life, and every one of us has painful feelings in our life, and you're not going to get away from that. And the problem is with pain, when you turn it into suffering, it's because you add a story to that. Suffering's a choice. Pain is not a choice. Pain is there. It's hardwired into you. It's actually an element that you shouldn't use as something that you resisted all the time. It's there to serve you. It's when you create the story like I'm a failure, or I'm not good enough, or I'm flawed as a human being. That's when you create suffering in your life. And I think that's where you've got to really become a master your mind. And mastering your mind requires a lot of skill. And people go and they study to be a plumber, or they study to be whatever, You can put years and years into studying that. And you have to master it. And it's the same with yourself. People go into life and they say, oh, it's just instinctual. It's actually not just instinctual. We are blessed with the frontal lobe in our brain, which is a thinking brain. We have the fight, flight, flee mode of our brain, but we are blessed with a thinking brain. So we need to know how to master that, and what your thoughts do, and how they impact your life. Because you go through life and you think you're just a psychological thing, and we focus on the psychological well-being. But we forget that there's a physiological side of our body and our life that is so important. And I'm going to go into talk about that, because I don't think people actually realize about the mind-body connection. You've lost sight of that. But I was saying you have an anxious way of responding to life, or you have an avoidant way of responding to life. And I know in my life that I've responded in both of those ways. Sometimes I'll isolate myself when I'm, going through some hard times, because I find that it's easier. Because once, especially Facebook. Let me tell you what, Facebook, I don't know, but it's not the best thing ever. If you go, and I learned that when I was in South America when my son was shot, I was on Facebook. It helped me, okay. But when I was there and I was looking at people who were checking into the international airport, and they were checking into this and this lovely thing, I looked at this and my life actually sucked. And I promise you, it made me so depressed. And I thought, I went off Facebook. And the funny thing is, I'm back on Facebook now, and I still go through a lot of emotions when I look at Facebook. Because I see people are still checking in there, and I'm checking into my lounge, my kitchen, out my window. That's what goes on in my life. And so you've got to be very careful how you allow your emotions to you either become bigger than them or they become bigger than you. So you've got to look at anxiety avoidance. And when you're conscious of that's how you respond to problems in your life. You've got to say, well, you know what, I am avoiding this, or my anxiety levels are getting too big. And when there's Viktor Frankl said, which is a very powerful thing that he said, Between a stimulus and a response, there's a space. And in that space lies your freedom. Okay? And what happens in life is we all react. If there's a stimulus, you react. You don't think, well, actually, no, there's a space between the stimulus and the response. But you've got to learn that there's a difference. When you stop reacting in your life and rather respond, it makes a massive difference in your life, because that is what creates emotional chaos in your life. And if you want clarity in your life, you've got to honor that space and think about what you're going to do, what you're going to say. And that's where stillness is so important. You know, I know when I get overwhelmed with stuff, and trust me, I get overwhelmed with stuff. I get overwhelmed with money. I get overwhelmed with being single for the rest of my life. I get overwhelmed by so much, you know, that sometimes, I mean, I don't see the wood for the trees. I trust everybody. I think everybody's good. And so I go through life like that. I'm not streetwise. I'm smart, but I'm not streetwise. So I'm still falling a lot and making a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, is that when you are aware and you are grounded in the fact that you come from a place of being a loving, kind person, okay? And you come from that place all the time. Every decision you make, every time that you respond in life to anything, you respond from a place of loving kindness instead of reacting from anger. Because anger is actually just, when somebody's angry, know that that person is totally powerless. And what happens? When somebody's angry with you, you must understand they're projecting all their stuff onto you because they're coming from a place of powerlessness, and you then owning it because you're reacting. But when you respond and know that, and you know what I do, when I meet people, and I've learned this, is that I say under my breath, I want this person to be happy. And when I meet people, I go with that. I don't go and say, okay, well, you know, because I can tell you something that I've been judged harshly in my life. And it's been a constant battle, I have to tell you. I mean, I even went to a psychologist recently, about 3-4 years ago, when I had another one of my problems. And I remember going to this lady. I'm not going to tell you her name, but God forbid if you go to her. And I remember sitting there, and she brought this mirror. And I remember she put this mirror in front of me, and she made me look at this mirror, and she says, well, what do you see? I said, well, I see a broken little bird, and her name is Robyn, you know? So she comes out and she gets my hair, and she says, you are the most disheveled looking girl that I've ever come across. And she made me take my shoes off to ground myself. And in fact, it was the 9th of the 11th of that day. It was actually 9/11 that day. And I was 10 floors up in the Musgrave Centre. I'm giving it away. And she said to me, I must ground myself. I said, I cannot ground myself. I'm 10 floors up. It is 9/11 and I'm not grounded. And I walked out of there feeling worse than I did when I went inside there. And you know, and I phoned my mother and I said, you know, people can cause you so much damage when you don't know who you are. But fortunately, I get over things very quickly because I have to. Because I don't have somebody to phone. You know, and also I learned a very powerful thing from my son. You know, another thing which you're not your religion. Okay? A lot of people go to life and they say, oh, you know what? I'm a Christian. I'm a spiritual person. You're not that. That is a part of you. It doesn't make up who you are. Because, you know, it's very disempowering that. Because if you believe you that and that changes, your whole bottom will fall from underneath you. So what happens is that, I go all over the show. Am I making sense to everybody here? You're enjoying it? Okay. So now that you know who you are and that loving kindness is something that you can learn. And I live my life from that premise. I really do. Because if I didn't, I would be in a hole. Because from being judged, from making bad choices, from having to bring up boys on your own, just so many things, you know, from studying to make a living, from trying to find where this money is coming to that money. And let me tell you what, don't believe that people who are successful have to have certain things. You can be successful just because you're a loving, kind person. And when you know that, other things come into life and they actually don't matter that much. They really don't matter that much. And another thing which is so important is that I've had to rely on. I had to give up expecting things from people. And I learned that in my life. I mean, I have a wonderful support structure, which of my family, my auntie, I do, and I'm blessed with that. But every time I phone my mother, I actually sometimes put the phone down on her, and it's very bad. She said, you shouldn't say that. You know, if you say that, that's going to happen. But let me tell you something about the law of attraction. You know, you've all heard about whatever you say, you bring into your life. You can become paranoid. Because what happens is you start to hate yourself, and you also start thinking, you know what, you're actually flawed as a person. Because I can tell you, most times in my life, I'm visualizing good things, I'm saying good things, I'm wanting those good things, but they don't always happen. So what I think, well, if I said that 10 years ago, I must have said something that this is happening to me now, so there's got to be something wrong with me. It's not like that. The law of attraction, there's something to it. It's not just what you say is going to happen in your life. There's the 80-20 rule. You've got to come from a place whose energy is really what matters. If you're saying things and you're talking from a place where you want to comfort yourself and soothe yourself, and you're coming from that place, it doesn't matter if you in that moment say something. It's not going to mean that 10 years down the line, you're still going to be without money or whatever. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you can become paranoid and you can actually begin to feel that you're a flawed human being. There's that law of attraction. It actually got to me many times because I thought there's no ways that I've actually ever chosen for my son to be shot. I've never chosen for a partner like that. I wrote letters under my pillow to my creator saying, bring me this. And it didn't happen. So doesn't always work like that. So don't worry too much if this law of attraction is not working for you. It is very important that what you say and what you think, that you're going in an optimistic way and a positive way all your life, because that just makes who you are. And if you're coming from a loving kindness place, you're going to come from a place of compassion all the time. You're going to be positive and you're going to believe in yourself. And what I was saying, when I was in America, in South America with my son, I was so alone, really. I mean, I couldn't phone anybody. Myself and Bill had gone up to, I don't know what it was. I was just writing checks, and my son's thing was just taking every single cent that I owned, and I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, I actually realized that you can't expect people to understand the place you're in. They won't understand. And it's not fair to ask anybody to accept and understand where you are. Because if you will set up yourself up for disaster. Because people don't understand where you've been. They've had a life of different problems and different anxieties and whatever. So I let go of that, and I learned to not expect anything from anybody. And in that moment, I thought the only person I've got is me. And fortunately, when you build a lot of resources in yourself, and that comes from reading a lot, you have a lot of belief in yourself, a lot of trust in yourself, which helps you, and everybody has it inside of them. You just don't want to believe it. That you in that moment, you trust life. I trust life. That I don't, like I was sitting on the Sunday, you were visiting me, and life was just merry, everything was good. I bought nice furniture and my brand new little puppy. And then in the afternoon, I got a call that my son was shot. And what do? Life just, it throws you this, and you say, okay, now what do I do? You can't sit on your knees and pray to God to solve it. That's disempowering. I'm a firm believer in a higher power. I'm a firm believer that there's a creator. But I do not believe that there's some separate person sitting in the clouds. And when people say to me, forgive me, Lord, please, Lord, and look up into the sky, I think the reason you do that is you've got to keep your head up. Keep your head up, keep going forward. But it's disempowering to think that all the solutions are solved outside of yourself. They're not. You have it inside of you. And even if you want to go to the Bible or anything, it says the kingdom of heaven is within. Ye are God's. And when you understand that you are created in that image and you have everything you need. And I think a spiritual side is actually your life. It's not something that you do 2 minutes a day or at the end of the day or Sunday. It's the way you live your life. And if you live a life with loving kindness and compassion, you're living a prayer. Really you are. So what happens, I give up the expectations, and I learned in that moment that you got to trust life. You got to step on that cliff, and you know what? You got to take the walk over the cliff and know that you get given wings. I know that. And I believe in that and when you know that, everything comes to you. Everything comes to you. You've got to believe it. And whatever is coming to you, even if in that time it is really horrendous, know that there's growth in it. Something is coming out of that. And I know when you're a mother or a parent, when you get given children, it's like they say, when your child comes, it's like putting your heart and making you put your heart out on the floor. Is that what children do to you? It makes you so vulnerable. And I know that having a son like I have, it stretched me way beyond anything because I've had to trust in myself. I've had to free myself from anxiety. I've got to just go into the unknown and know that everything is going to be okay. And it is always okay because living in the present is this moment. If you are anxious, remember you are living in the future, but anxiety is only something that's future orientated. It's not in the present. So if you start living in the present moment and whatever's going on here, and you deal with it here, and I'm going to tell you how you deal with awful emotions, and I'm going to tell you how, because I've had to do it, because I've never relied on alcohol or medication, or I've had to be raw in every emotion, and I've tried a whole bunch of things. So what happens is that when an emotion comes to you that is really, really tough, what you need to do, you need to sit in that moment and say, okay, this feels terrible. This is awful. I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. I don't know what decision to make. I don't know how I'm even going to take the next step forward. And then start to notice, and this is the mind-body connection, which we've lost touch with. Notice in your body, where are you feeling it? Because a feeling is not something that's in your mind. You feel it. And I think if somebody said to me, what does frustration feel like or anger feel like? Look into your body. Scan your body and say, where am I feeling it? And you may be feeling it in your throat. You may be feeling it in your eyes. You may be feeling it in your stomach, in your heart, wherever you're feeling it. And when you see the pain you're feeling in your heart, send that part of your body compassion. Open your heart. Open your mind. Send it compassion. And then don't resist the pain. Because resisting the pain is the problem. You've got to look at pain like it's a comfy old friend at a bus stop. Have you ever sat at a bus stop? I sat in a bus plenty of times going to school, and we were always left late, 5 hours later. So I know it's how to sit at a bus stop and wait. And it's like if somebody sits next to you, it's a comfy thing there. You've got to look at pain as a comfy friend that sits next to you. Because when you resist pain, it will persist in your life. And when you feel that pain in your body, wherever it is, feel it, acknowledge it, label it, and say, okay, you know what? You there? Because there's nothing you can do to get rid of it. But I'll tell you about letting go. Nothing can get rid of it. And the moment you feel it, then put your attention somewhere else in your body. And that actually helps with pain. And you must try it. It's actually because, you know what? You get given this body, we don't use it properly. And I mean, if you know what your body is composed of, you'd be in awe of it. That's a physiology of who you are. Same thing when you're trying to make a decision and you don't know whether you should do this or whether it's a relationship issue. Do I leave this person? Do I stay with this person? What do I do? In that moment when you're frozen, you can lose your confidence and you can lose your sense of self. But do the same process. Because when you connect it to your body like that, that is when your intuition comes. And that's all intuition is. And if you know that is where, if you want to really know, the only advice that you should ever take in your life is an intuition. But because you've lost your direction and lost your faith in yourself, you have to go to people like myself or whoever, because and it's good to come to people because somebody else can see a third person, get you out of your emotions where you're enmeshed in them and help you to see something. But people who go to fortune tellers and people who go to this friend and say, what do I do? And what do you think I should do? If you sit quietly and get in touch with your own body, your intuition will tell you exactly what to do. Exactly what to do. And let me tell you, your intuition will be strongest when you live a life which is kind to yourself. And when I say kind to yourself, is that, and people won't like what I'm telling you, but you know what? It's the truth. When you are punishing, and it's almost violent towards yourself. When you are punishing yourself with alcohol over the top, smoking your lungs out, sorry girls, but I have to say this because you know what, you hear, but you know what, can I tell you what, when you have an addiction in your life, and you start not hating that part of your life, you'll heal it with love, because love is the greatest healer. I've seen with people who come into the places where I've worked with addictions, and I haven't even focused on the addiction at all. I've taught them to love themselves. I've put them in another direction. By default, they stop doing that Because by loving yourself and treating yourself with integrity, feeding yourself the right food, you know, I mean, if you want to go into all the kind of things, you know, there's a kind diet, and I'm not going to go into the kind diet because that is a controversial thing, but I chose 7-8 years ago never to eat meat, animal products, whatever. And I haven't, and I've never touched alcohol in my life. And not because I wanted to be better than, it's because I knew that if I want to stand here and alter and change people's lives, I have to do it. And let me tell you, sometimes it would be nice to just go and veg out and, you know, and be undisciplined and do what you want. But I have an accountability to so many people who rely on me. And I think accountability, if you can find one person in your life that you can be accountable to, you will alter your life because you'll want to lead a better life. And people who've got children are growing up in an environment today which is not easy. There's very few mentors around them. There's very few people who are teaching them the right things. And everybody is living on autopilot. Very few people are living in a state of awareness. And our children have got no chance, you know, and children watch what you do. And I've seen it in my son. I've lived my life because I watched my parents. And I was blessed to be able to have a life where, you know, things were dealt with in a nice way. And I'm grateful that I was in that environment. And it wasn't a choice I made. I was in the environment. And that's why the environment is so important. But I just want to also tell you something about letting go before I get onto the environment. Letting go, you know, people often say to you, know, you need to let go. Just let go, okay? Let me tell you what, that is hard. But you know what letting go actually, it's an invitation. And when I explain to you what that means, is that when somebody says to you, you need to let that go, what you need to say is, okay, you know what? This is troubling me, but I'm going to give you permission to leave. And if you choose to still stay with me, do not give it a story. Stop feeding it. It will go on its own. Because if you don't let go, you're going to get dragged through life. And it's like if anybody's sitting there and you're giving it no attention, and it's not fun anymore. It's going to leave. So that's actually what letting go is. So don't fight with yourself when somebody says let go. That give it permission. You know, your inner dialogue is very important. You should be talking to yourself all the time. My mother talks to herself all the time. all the time. You see, most time, Camilla knows. I mean, Camilla's grown up with us. She knows. My mother talks out loud. You know, inner dialogue is very important because you've got to tell yourself, give yourself permission to let go of these things because some things actually are toxic to you. And that's what forgiveness is. I've always prided myself on being a forgiving person. And it's almost like I almost encourage people to do terrible things to me, but say, you know what, I'm going to forgive you because I enjoy the process. Because it makes me grow as a person. I mean, anybody can do anything to me that is really bad and give me a little bit of time, but I will let it go. And I do let it go. Because it's important for me as a person. And that's what letting go is also, you know, just let it go. It doesn't matter to you because you are a loving, kind human being. And you come from that place. And talking about the environment that you live in, the environment around you, the friends you choose, is important as much as the environment that is inside. And I think people lose sight of that. The environment inside your body is very important. What do you say to yourself? I've said to people who, it's as bad as this, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this, is that, have you ever seen, some people get stoned. In some religions, they put somebody and they stone them. We do that to ourselves. We are so critical and so judgmental and so harsh with ourselves. I have developed such compassion with myself, to myself. And that's just because I've had to. Because there's nobody else there for me to say, it's okay, you know. So I've had to become very compassionate to myself. And I forgive myself. I'm compassionate. If I make a mistake and I say something I shouldn't, I just start again. I don't get a story to it. Well, you know, you failed and you this. I just start again. Finish. Start again. And you need to do that with yourself. You need to treat yourself like you're your own best friend. And you need to be conscious of the environment that is inside of you. What do you eat? Do you just eat rubbish to comfort yourself? Do you just not eat? Do you, whatever. I mean, you know that, and I'm not here to tell you what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat and everything. You trust your intuition on this one. But I can tell you that a kind doubt is the way to go. And I think that does, it alters your life in huge ways when you're living from a time or a place where you're feeding yourself the right things. The same as when you go to sleep at night. I think people underestimate the importance of sleep. You know, if you're going out partying, I hate parties. Okay, I hate them. I don't know why, but I just don't like them. So I prefer to stay at home. But the thing is that what you need to do, this is my mother's fault again. But you know, people underestimate the importance of sleep. I think people just get into their bed and they tranquilize themselves to sleep, or they take a sleeping pill, or they're watching crime before they go to sleep, or all kind of things like that. That is not good for your brain. Because I've seen people, and I've heard people that they have nightmares at night, and all the nightmares are because they watch something on the television. That's cruel to yourself. You need to read something nice, or quieten yourself down and sleep in a bed that is actually nice. You know, don't just use any old pillow and any old this. Treat yourself and sleep well, because it's such an important part of your existence. And people don't think that sleep. They go to sleep at 1 o'clock and they brag about, you know, I live on 4 hours of sleep. That's not clever. You need to sleep. You need to restore yourself. You need to do that, because your body will not ever function at its full capacity if you're denying it something that is totally natural. Is everything making sense to you here? Are you? Okay. Just check that up. There's something that... Hold on a sec.
ROBYN, isn't every decision made out of love or fear?
Okay, well, decisions are made of love and fear. But it depends where you choose to make the decision, because you have that choice. Like I said, when there's a stimulus and a response, okay, in that space is your freedom. So you can say, okay, I'm going to choose to respond out of fear. And fear is actually about the future. It's not about right now, because right now you're safe. And that's where you've got to start living skillfully and mastering yourself. Thinking about what you say. You know that Nike ad, Just Do It? I mean, no wonder Oscar Pistorius and Tiger Woods and that, because they just do it. So if you want to be sponsored by Nike, I promise it's not a good thing. Because it's true, they're impulsive people. And you can't afford to be impulsive today. And that's what gets so many people in trouble. They are impulsive. It's because they don't honor that space in between. And let me tell you about the space, is that when you start plugging yourself into the stuff that you can't see, as opposed to people, you know, and what I mean by that is that if you're relying on how that person makes you feel, or how this relationship makes you feel, you will never ever find emotional peace or clarity. You've got to unplug it literally and plug it into the empty space. And if you think about it, oxygen you can't see, gravity you can't see. Those are the things that you can't live without. And and your breath. I mean, your breath, you've got to breathe as if your life depends on it, because that is physiologically probably your best coping mechanism when you're in times of real trouble. So, I mean, when you said a choice made out of love and fear, it's your choice that. But fear cripples you. You know, if you sit here, you know, I've been there, you know, when you start, and when I was in South America, I mean, every single fear was there. I was fearing every day. I thought, if I go there, my son he could die in front of me. I mean, I was watching the heart monitors with tachycardia, and it was horrific. But I had in that choice to operate from a place of love or fear. And I wasn't going to operate in a place of fear, because that creates, it cripples you. It's debilitating. And I just thought, well, you know what? If my son had to die, I know I would deal with it. But I'm not going to worry about it until it's here. And that's how I started. I've had to, and in fact, it's a recent development that I've started to live from that place, is that I will worry about it when it's here. If it's not here, I don't want to pay it attention. I'm not interested. I'll focus on what I can do right now. And that is actually just trying to live your life more skillfully and mastering your emotions. Is that okay? Just check I've remembered everything. Another thing is that also, I learned a lot from a lot of people, that, you know, today it's so easy to be a victim. And a victim is not only a victim of crime, a victim is to your thoughts. A victim is to what somebody else thinks about you. A victim is something that we can become a victim to our bank balance. We can become a victim to anything. You cannot allow that. Because the moment you become a victim to that, you're cut off by the knees. You have got to take charge of your life. And you've got to know that if I am going in life and responding from a place where I'm compassionate to myself, and I'm going in a place where I have goals, and you know that it is important for you to know that you work with the universe. This is an abundant universe. So if you're working with the principle of the universe, you will get abundance. It's not just for that person and that person. It may not be now, but it's there for you. And you've got to believe that. And you've got to keep going and mastering and saying, I'm going in that direction, I'm going in that direction. Because I know that I've been fresh out before, and I know what it's like. It's terrible. And it takes your confidence away. It limits your choices in life. But you still have a choice in that moment to say, and acknowledge, this is what it's doing to me. Because I think it's the unawareness of it that creates problems. But if you're aware of this is what's happening now, you can choose otherwise. And things always come right. They always do. The universe is expanding. You have to expand with it. And another thing is that we all have defense mechanisms in our life. And defense mechanisms, if you want to go and read Freud, he'll tell you about every defense mechanism. That's actually quite a good exercise to do, because you'll see yourself in just about every one of them. And what happens is that the defense mechanism actually allows you to tell yourself to avoid pain. So a lot of people will be sitting here in total denial, that of whatever. And the moment that you realize and you get out of the denial, the defense mechanism is no longer applicable to you. And I think a lot of people go through life and they're wondering why things aren't coming right. And they're blaming this person, and they're blaming the economy, and they're blaming that there's no opportunities in this person and that person. When in fact, if they just took control of themselves and mastered themselves and looked at the areas of your life where are not contributing towards your goodness or your greatness, those things are what stop you from achieving what you need to achieve in your life. And when you get out of the denial of that, when you know that actually I've got a problem here, I'm the problem, I'm responsible for this, then the defense mechanism doesn't help you anymore. Like projection. There's so many defense mechanisms that you use. I think that's about really all that I have to tell you today. Does anybody want to ask me anything? Don't ask me trick questions. If you want to, you can speak on here. Does anybody want to ask me anything?
Can you go on about more about you not being your thoughts? You're the thinker behind your thoughts.
The observer.
You're the observer.
You've been doing lots of reading that I've been giving you, eh? Good for you. Let me tell you what, can I use you as an example? This lady here, I've spoken about you a lot. Her name is Linda. One day when I was sitting in my medical practice, I get quite tearful when I think about some people who've impacted my life. And she was sitting over there, and one day she came, she said, I've noticed your energy and whatever, and I want you to help me. And Linda came in there, she had cancer, where her life support, she was put in a hospital where they totally left her. She had a stroke because they didn't put the breathing pipe, and it gets more horrific as you go on. And I can't even talk about it. But this lady was told, literally, you know what, you will never be okay. You may as well forget about it. Your life, you won't even take another day. And she's sitting here. And it's because she has applied herself. And I'm so proud of you. And she reads. And she used to drink too much. And she stopped all of that. She stopped all of that. And I mean, that is because you've put so much effort into your life. And I promise you are one of the people that I'm so proud of. Because you know what? It takes courage to make changes. It's not easy to change. It takes such courage. But you've learned so much. I mean, you should be standing up here because, you've taught me a lot too, that you can overcome anything in this life. And you're the first person who knows about your thoughts. Your thoughts have got you here. You could still be sitting in your bed like you used to do. You wouldn't get out of your bed. But you're walking here. And Linda also couldn't walk. She couldn't sit down in a chair. She couldn't. And every time she'd come to me and I said, okay, sit on the chair, but don't hold the chair. Let's try. And that's where this lady's come from. And she'd sit with me. And then next week I'd say, you're not holding yourself, and you sat on, you got up on your own. I mean, and today it's just remarkable. You're very inspiring. And let me tell you, Linda has had a hard life. And I admire you. And you see, that's what makes it so easy for me to stand up here. It's because people like you change my life. You give me a reason to do this.
You changed my life.
Well, it's a pleasure.
So what was the pivotal point that made her decide to get up?
Ask her.
Was it you?
It was, and Robyn, as far as the drinking is concerned, I could never imagine going out partying without alcohol. And Robyn showed me that I can laugh and have fun and be stupid and not be drunk. But it's a whole lot more.
If you had to sit and listen to her story, it is quite incredible. You know, and I always believed in her. And also, I mean, I really did. I believed in her, and you know, the people who come into my life and my practice, I don't look at it as a job. You know, I take it's personally, and because I suppose it's also, you know, if Linda's like that, I know that what I tell them works. You know, and I mean, I have not achieved half of what Linda's managed, and I think the pivotal point in Linda's life is that actually knowing you can do this. That's it.
It's a choice. You know, you can either choose to do it or choose not. But as you say, it's the support that you have behind it.
Absolutely.
Well. You know, you could have.
And you were her support too.
Yes.
A lot for her is her grandson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, she wants to be a good granny, and she wants to be there for her grandson.
She did. I remember
those
that.
things that make her get up every day and say, I am going to conquer today.
Yeah.
I am going to do it well.
With the help from her.
But it just shows, you know, is that, you know, that if you believe in yourself, and you know, it's like if you're sitting at a robot and you saw a red Ferrari or an act of kindness, what inspires you more? An act of kindness. You know? It's true, you know? Yeah.
He's to come see you, because I can stop saying the red Ferrari.
That's a difficult one,
No, it's not, because can I tell you, if you were to ask anybody here what money brings you, you know, look, money is energy, eh? That's all it is. If you think about it, that is all it is. You can waste your energy, you can use your energy for a good cause, you can just write out checks willy-nilly, you can not respect it. Money is energy. So if you look at money as energy, you can have a lot more control over it. Because I think you can respect it more, you can appreciate it more, and it's not a root of all evil.
And you can help me go from the red Ferrari to an act of kindness.
You know, when you, huh?
Your first available appointment.
No, but you know, when you do acts of kindness, when you don't have all the millions in the bank, you still have a joy about it. You still have a peace. What do you think all those people wanting to buy that and have that is because they're looking for peace, they're looking for joy. And that's no short circuit there. Look at Hollywood. You know, it's nice to have all those things, I think, but especially with around money, if your reason for, your motivation for money is to have everything for yourself, I think it takes longer to get it, but I think if you are motivated by the fact that you'd like to help others, you know, if I had money, I'd love to be a secret millionaire. I'd love to just know which of my friends are struggling, put money in an envelope. I mean, that's what I would like money for, you know. So I think it's what motivates you for money, but it doesn't define who you are. That's another thing. If you define yourself by that, it's not who you are. That's what creates chaos in your life, because you're not how much money you've got.
I think our husbands they get quite annoyed with us because we give our stuff away all the time. And whenever we sit at each other's houses, we're like, no, you can have that, you can have that. No, he has it. You wake up the next morning and
Yeah, where am I when you're giving all your things? No, but you know, the thing is, you must also understand when people are reacting, maybe not responding, remember they're coming from what's inside of them. So maybe they have a mentality of there's not enough. So don't then make that your problem. That's their story. You give away because you're motivated by being kind. You know, you've got to be responsible.
So there is kindness in you.
Of course. Of course. That's where do you think you came from?
What do you think I'm?
Yeah, where do you think you came from? You came from a loving act.
Yeah.
You know, that's your essence of who you are. You're not all the other things. And remember, people are projecting what they know about themselves onto you. Don't take things personally, you know. That's where you've got that little bit of time to not react, to respond. Okay.
So what books are there that you can suggest us to read?
The Power of
On
Now.
how to build, how to listen to that you.
And that you.
Sure. You know what? If you put your email down, I will write a whole long list. And then what you must do is when I give you the list, go through it and use your intuition and let that one come out. Don't let me tell you what to do. You've got to trust yourself that right book will come out and make it itself available to yourself. But I'll write a long list of books. But I read all the time.
Well, when you say crime's negative, I read a lot. I mean, I've got a huge library, that's all I do, that's my thing. And, but I read a lot of the mistakes other people made, not to fill myself with negativity, but to not make those mistakes.
Okay, but you see,
and to understand other people, because some people do have sort of criminal minds or sadistic minds or personalities, and I just feel I don't have those, but if I can understand them in others, I'll fit in.
There's nothing wrong with reading that. I mean, I studied penology and criminology, and I wanted to be a forensic, and I'm fascinated by that. But it's not who you are. You can read about that. There's nothing wrong, but don't give it energy. You know, it's like Mother Teresa said that, you know, in life, everybody gives so much energy against rape and against crime and against violence. You create more and more of it. If you just don't give it energy, if you had to have a march for peace, and you gave that energy, we would create more peace. That's what you give energy to. So there's nothing wrong with reading that. I think it's important that, I mean, there's nothing worse than sitting with somebody who doesn't read anything. You've got nothing to talk about. I mean, you know, and I think that if that's an interest of yours, and I'm very fascinated by the criminal mind. Absolutely.
But
there's nothing wrong with that.
You're reading it for that reason, because you're interested in the criminology. But
and you're becoming
somebody else who reads it.
It depends what your motivation is. If your motivation is because you want to be a better person.
Your intention.
I want to make the world a better place, actually in a shitty way, not that I'm a do-gooder, but I feel if I understand, because I don't understand how people are motivated, if I understand, like if there's a criminal, sadistic or crazy mind, and I can be, like you said, I actually want to fit in as opposed to work out how to be a criminal.
You know what I realize is that, you know, Gandhi said a very powerful thing. He says, be the change you want to see in this world. And I think the only way you change anything in this world is if you change yourself. So whatever you want to see in this world, you've got to be that. So if you want to bring peace into this world, make sure you're an instrument of peace.
And I think you'll fit in any case with when you attract the people that you want to be with. Yeah. So, and when people accept you for who you are, then it's easy to fit in. You know, and you've got to just let them either accept you for who you are or they don't. And when you find that clique of people, then that's the thing. I think some people are psychologically warped, and you've got to understand the world.
You know what the thing is?
A lot of, the family we come from.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is? You also got to, you know the thing is that you've also just got to let people be, and you've got to spend more time improving yourself. And then trying to change everybody else, because you know what, they're on their own little journey and you don't know what's right for them. You know, and your agenda may be to make everybody around you fit in with you, but you know, that's not life.
I want to fit in with everyone around me.
You don't need to fit in with anybody. You've got to believe in yourself and like yourself that it doesn't matter. You don't need to fit in with anybody. You've got to fit in with who you think you are. That's more important, because when you feel comfortable in your own skin, doesn't matter where they put you, you're going to be fine. But there's nobody here that is not insecure. We all have levels of insecurity, but that's what drives you to become better. The day you're not insecure is the day you're in the coffin. So, I mean, the fact that you're on this journey and that you're wanting to improve yourself, that's what matters. Don't make too much of a story of these things, you see. Keep it simple.
Like Eckhart Tolle says, when you're born, you've got a basket and you put your toys in it and you put your letters from your first boyfriend and you put your a certificate from your high school. That is all who you are. But it isn't actually who you are. It's just your basket of your story. Something.
There you go. There you go. That's a nice analogy. Exactly. But what happens is you identify everything in that basket and you become a basket case. It's true. And also, you know, dear old Peter in the back, I actually met him in Exclusive Books, you know. Just one day. Yeah, in Exclusive Books.
What's she doing a karate machine?
Oh, remember? Yes.
Didn't I also meet you in Exclusive?
You did. In fact, she met me at Adams. Yeah. It's true, eh? Yeah. I remember. Yeah, you know what I did in the bookshop, which is actually not funny, but Camilla knows. It's terrible. I mean, because I'm a very mischievous person. Because, you know, when you spend a whole lot of time in your house and you get out, you know, you make a lot of, you have to get so shoved. I had this, it's disgusting. And, you know, people think I'm such a glamorous girl, but I promise you, behind closed doors, I'm not. I had this fart machine, okay? And this fart machine, I promise you, was so real. And what I would do is I actually went to the bookshop and I used to put it behind the magazines, which are the porn magazines and that, and every guy used to go there, and Camilla was with me. As they go and they read it and they're all by themselves, I let it off. So that it would sound... and everybody's looking everywhere. So disgusting. And then, you're such a disgusting man, revolting. And then also I would take it with me to a pub. And I'd go into a pub and I'd clip it in my back here and I'd have the remote. So I'd be the only person there and I'd stand right next to them and I'd let it off. They'd say to me, you are so disgusting. The one time at Gateway, I was walking and I had it on my own and I specifically went past good-looking men. I thought, you know what, because whatever. And as I went past, I would let it off. And then they'd turn around and say, yes, did you see that chick? I had so much fun with that fart machine, I promise you. I even went away on a weekend, and these people dared me to. I didn't know anybody. They dared me to, for the whole weekend, is to just let this thing off. So what happened? Everybody was quiet around this boma, okay? I'd go and stand there, and I didn't have control. There was one person who had control of this thing, and it would go off, and all I would say is, pardon? Like, excuse me? They would go, then I heard they would go into the kitchen, they'd say, yes, you see that chick, imagine being in the bath with her, or under her pillow, and the next day, the guy came up to me, and he put his arm around me, and he apparently paced the floor all night. He said, never heard of a girl who's just so disgusting, farts like that. And he came and he put his arm around me. He said, you know what? I feel so bad. He said, but I've kept this thing going. And he let off the biggest. Yeah, I lost the machine. I used to get in trouble. My mum and father would be so cross because I'd use it in any inappropriate place in the middle of the movie when it's quiet. I'd let it off. Even in Gateway, even in the lift, there was this Indian guy on there, and I was with two girlfriends, and they said, let it off, and I let it off. So the Indian guy says to me, "Here a minute," said, "Karen, he let it off." Also, just so you don't feel bad. And he went, "Let one off." And the worst of that thing is, I eventually lost the remote, and I used to carry it in my handbag. And then what happens when people's car remotes go off, it also goes off. So I'm going to be paying my ticket at the Gateway, and it would go off. It would go off in my bag because somebody's turning their car remote on. Thank goodness I lost that thing. You know, I've been hunting for another one. That is such fun. Because you know what, can I tell you what? Humor is the only way you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably been my saving grace. Because I've had to use humor half my life. Because I promise you, if I had to sit and tell you, you're so sorry for me. So you have to find humor in your life. Anyway, go and have tea and coffee, and thank you for coming to listen to me. Okay.